Welcome to OMN English News Report, broadcasting to you live. Today is Wednesday, September the 30th, 2020. My name is Surati Saleh with technician Adil Usman. Today's bulletin is headlined with the following reports. Rights group warns Ethiopian forces to demonstrate restraint at upcoming festival. Ethiopian National Electoral Board members resign. Contestation over restriction of Erecha festival participants continues. Walleyta people's voices stifled, leaders on trial. Intimidations, abuses, and lootings continue to soar in parts of Oromia. Political prisoners continue to face the injustice of Ethiopia's justice system. And now for today's news. Human Rights Watch, an international rights group, warned Ethiopian government forces to refrain from attempting to suppress Oromo's massive open space festival. Human Rights Watch noted that Erecha is an event at which massive crowds gather each year in the town of Bishoftu in Ethiopia's Oromia region for the Oromo Harvest Festival, and it's one of the year's most important cultural and religious events for millions of ethnic Oromos. The rights group said in a statement issued on September 29, 2020, that this year's festival on October 3rd and 4th occurs against the backdrop of escalating tensions and unrest in Oromia. The statement reminded that the June 29, 2020 assassination of popular Oromo singer Hachalu Hundessa triggered violence, leaving hundreds killed, some by security forces, others by civilian perpetrators, and massive property destruction and displacement. The response, the statement continued, the government detained thousands, including prominent politicians, it accuses of involvement in violence. The security force presence in many towns in Oromia has increased, and recent protests have been met with a heavy-handed response. Human Rights Watch added, Erecha has already been a political flashpoint. In 2016, following a year of anti-government protests, security forces shot tear gas and discharged firearms as crowds gathered for the festival, sparking a stampede that left possibly hundreds dead. The rights group further said since March, the Ethiopian government has limited mass gatherings to slow the spread of COVID-19. With infection rates in Ethiopia remaining high, the authorities have recently further limited participations in large assemblies, most recently with the Orthodox Christian festival of Meskel, and now for this year's Erecha. An Oromia regional official has warned against manipulating the festival for political purposes. Federal security officials have also stated that they will not tolerate any violence. But many Oromos view the government's attempts to limit participation in Erecha with fear and suspicion. One 27-year-old man from West RC Zone, Oromia, recently said, the officials are selecting who will go, who will not, but they are not discussing with communities. You remember 2016? I fear that this year's Erecha festival will also face similar incidents. Human Rights warns, stressing amid a pandemic, reasonable restrictions on public gathering may be justified, but with tensions already high, expressions of dissent and resistance to government directives may be expected. The government should show it has learned lessons from its recent responses to demonstrations and the events of 2016 by ensuring security forces exercise restraint and allowing gatherers to celebrate safely. One of Ethiopia's Electoral Board members, NEBE, Dr. Getahun Kassa, resigned from the board. Dr. Getahun Kassa, who has been sitting on the Electoral Board of Ethiopia as one of the 5 members since June 2019, presented his resignation letters to the Ethiopian House of People's Representatives on September 28, 2020. The Electoral Board of Ethiopia posted the resignation of Dr. Getahun on its Facebook page but did not provide details. Reports have it that the Electoral Board members, including Ms. Burtukan Mideksa, are handpicked appointees of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed approved by the parliament without any consultation with the opposition parties. The Electoral Board is also believed to be one of the loyal instruments to the Prime Minister and his Prosperity Party. The decision made by the Prosperity Party branch in Oromia to restrict the number of Erecha Oromo Thanksgiving participants continued to be met with furious reaction. Public opinions received over telephone. It is reminded on October 2, 2016, an estimated 2 million people attended Erecha in Bishoftu, Oromia. It is reminded during the Erecha 2016 celebration, attendees chanted in opposition. Hundreds were killed in result of the government forces' action. It is remembered as the Erecha massacre, where an estimated 600 people were killed and thousands injured. In 2019, an estimated 7 million people attended last year's Erecha's celebration in the town of Bishoftu, the largest of its kind in Africa to be celebrated in an open space. Reports across Oromia are already being exposed to government security seeking to hunt for youth and adults to arrest and prevent them from attending Erecha festivities. Most infuriating to the attendees of the celebration is the government failed attempts at issuing restrictive passes to limit the number of Oromo participants who are expected to attend in their millions from across Oromia. The celebration is scheduled to take place on October the 3rd in Finfinne and October 4th in Bishoftu. Any attempt to limit numbers would be considered tantamount to cancellation, claim international Oromo activists. Members of the Oromo Federalist Congress call for a genuine national dialogue this new year. The statement begins with expressing the heavy political burdens in Oromia, yet being optimistic with hope and despair. OFC emphasizes, without a shadow of a doubt, the hope for democratic transition is disturbingly failing. The statement continues by shedding light on the turmoil continuing in Ethiopia's largest state, Oromia, having Qeros back on the street protesting while Tigray is increasingly becoming a de facto state within the larger Ethiopian state. The Oromo Federalist Congress explains the country's complex problem having remained unsolved, and new ones are being created, with a resultant effect of putting the future of the country and the hope for a democratic transition at a critical crossroad. OFC states, we, OFC, are at a point in time when drawing a common roadmap and real national consensus over the basics of the state transformation are much needed for successful transformation. The statement produced by the Oromo Federalist Congress includes 8 actions asked to be taken urgently. There's one strong action out of the 8 that mentions about the political prisoners. We also believe that democracy cannot be built under condition of gross violations of human rights and growing prison population. Hence, we strongly advise the ruling party that peace and stability cannot be achieved by detaining political opponents. To put differently, both releasing political prisoners and stopping harassments of opponents hugely help the conduct a peaceful democratic transition and ease the birth pang of democratic Ethiopia. To us, short of that, may well be a recipe for further political instability and disaster. Leaders of the Walleyta of Ethiopia, one of the ancient nations in the country, which was incorporated into the Ethiopian Empire through a bloody invasion of Menelik II in the late 19th century, are facing charges of violence and disrupting order and law, while in reality they have merely demanded a statehood status as per the Constitution of Ethiopia, sources told OMN. Sources from Soto town, capital of Walleyta zone, told OMN on telephone that the Walleyta people, that account for 6.7% of the 81 million total population of Ethiopia, have been demanding a self-rule to become one of the members of the federal states, rejecting the geographic patch-up which stuffed 56 linguistic and cultural groups in one basket as the southern nations and nationalities and people states, an arrangement that disregarded nations' historical realities and development aspiration. The Walleyta people presented their question formally and peacefully to an in-line with the Constitution and waited for the response of the House of Federation more than the due stipulated in the Constitution. Learning that the House of Federation downplayed the demand, the Walleyta representatives withdrew their membership from PP of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. On August 9, 2020, while the leaders of the Walleyta Zone administration and other influential persons of the area were discussing their quest to have their own region, federal security forces raided the meeting hall and detained them. Subsequently, when the people demanded the release of their leaders, Security forces opened fire on civilians and killed at least 34 people and injured hundreds, mainly in Soto and Boditi towns. Even though the government released the Walleyta leaders temporarily on August 13, 2020, security forces again put the 19 people, including Zonal Administrator Mr. Degeto Kumbe, and arrested them in Awasa City. The government also shut down Walleyta Development Association, WDA, which coordinates the community's development activities. Moreover, the federal government shut down Walleyta FM 96.6, a renowned community radio station based in Soto City, this capital of Walleyta Zone, and 36 permanent and freelance journalists and support staff members were fired. In East Hararghe Zone of Oromia in Meta district of Jalanko town, families who told OMN that their loved one was killed by security forces due to torture inflicted on him are being threatened and jailed by the same forces. Local from the town told OMN security agents and Prosperity Party caterers arrested the brother of the deceased, accusing him of reporting to Oromia Media Network the death of his brother in the hands of the police. Meanwhile, in the same zone of Oromia in Gorowa, Magala district, defense forces arrested over 180 people in a military camp under harsh conditions, locals told OMN. The detainees are incarcerated arbitrarily, without court warrant, and without any due legal process. In a related development in Munisa district, Arsa town of Arsi zone, commander of the security of the area has reportedly been arrested with the allegation of disclosing government secrets. Security forces also heavily beat up a young man named Dido Denabo, a resident of Arsa town, and the victim is in a nearby hospital. Security forces' human rights violations still on the rise in other parts of the Oromia as well. In Gidbi town of West Walaga of Oromia, security forces killed a young man named Masfin Mamu, a mentally disabled person, and they threw his body into a ditch, locals told OMN. The young man was known to have been suffering with mental illness and a homeless person in the town until he was brutally killed by bullets of Ethiopian Defense Forces, locals reported. In other news, it has been reported to OMN that the store owned by Jawar Mohammed's sister, Misha Mohammed, has been looted by federal and Oromia police on September 28, 2020, in the city of Adama. Misha Siraj Mohammed told OMN that police have looted $200,000 worth of items. Misha Mohammed expresses to OMN, as a citizen of this country, I have paid all my taxes, every taxes I had to pay in order to keep my business running. The only reason why the government continues to put my family and I through pain and unreasonable trouble is because I am Jawar's sister. She adds that Jawar's bank account remains closed. Sisai Bikale was arrested by the Ethiopian government as part of the crackdown unleashed by the government of Abiy Ahmed against the Oromo people following the assassination of a beloved Oromo artist Hachalu Hundesa. The courts ordered his release on bail, but the police refused to implement the court order and kept him in prison. His wife, also in the picture, passed away on September 27, 2020. She was not able to receive proper treatment because her husband's bank account was blocked, and their plea to enable it fell on deaf ears. As her health deteriorated, Sisai pleaded to enable his bank account for her treatment. His plea remained unheard. After receiving the information of his wife's health, he was denied to even see her. After a couple days, Sisai was given the information of his wife's passing. He was denied to attend funeral services. In other news, sources told OMN influencer and political singer Jafar Yusuf has been arrested by the government for the second time in Addis Ababa. His location and reason of arrest remains unknown. That's all the news we have for you in this bulletin, and English news will return to you live on Oromia Media Network. But right now, we leave you with a footage of a message from Oya DC for their upcoming grand rally and Erecha festive celebrations from around the world. I hope you enjoy us in time for our next news bulletin.
The North American Grand Rally for Human Rights is being held in Washington, D.C. Friday, October 2nd.
This rally is organized by the Oromo community of Washington, D.C. This rally is aimed at pressuring our senators and representatives to call for the release of political prisoners.
Jawar Mohammed, Batkala Garba, Hamza Buren, Abdi Ragasa,
Shamsuddin Taha,
Lami Benya,
U.S. citizen Misha Terry, and many others.
We are calling on Oromos and allies near and far to stand in solidarity with our call for justice.
Thank you. Galatoma.
Injufannon kan ummata Oromoti.
Until then, my name is Surati Sali with technician Adil Usman. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.
Sabakenya egio ya mareo, biatenya egio ya mareo.